everyone. This is Liz Bothwell from Waste 360, and I'm lucky enough to have Matanya Horowitz, co-founder and CEO of AMP Robotics here. Hi, Matanya.
Hey, Liz, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. He's joining us, Waste 360 Coffee Talk. It's a new series where I get to chat with some of the top leaders from waste and recycling. See, you have your coffee.
Well equipped. Yeah, you're very well equipped. Yeah, there you go.
We're set.
Yeah.
So, everyone, this is a quick bite into what's happening with Matanya and his company, AMP Robotics. So, I'm really looking forward to doing this. So, Matanya, what are your clients saying? How has COVID affected them and affected the installation process of what you and AMP Robotics is doing right now?
Well, there's a lot going on, of course, just as there is for everybody. For us, we were just as surprised as anybody else when things were first really happening, especially in early March. And for a little while, we were, to be honest, scrambling a bit. We weren't quite sure how we should deal with the pathogen. A lot of the guidance was a little uncertain, but at this point, we've largely figured it out. Fortunately, none of our team has tested positive for the virus. And I think that's thanks to the energy we put in. So in our factory, we wipe down the different locations. We keep, social distance between all the employees. We've done things like split shifts. And after an initial period where we held back a little bit, we've continued to do installations. So this might have been more road trips and things like that, but we, as essential workers, have been continuing to install robots all over the country. And it's actually worked out quite well. Everybody's been taking precautions. When we show up on site, we clean up the area, make sure that it's sanitary as well. And we kept chugging along. For a lot of our customers or potential customers, what we've seen is there's a general acknowledgement about the value robots can provide in providing sort of a stable source of sorting capacity for a MRF. Of course, a lot of MRFs weren't really designed with social distancing in mind. And so the robots giving them additional flexibility for how they can man their sorting stations has been really good. And so we've seen both existing customers and also new customers sort of build that into their evaluation of the robots.
Oh, that's great. And speaking of the MRFs, I mean, I know we have so many different ones across the country and they have different layouts and different challenges in terms of installations. How can you at AMP modify the robots to make them better accommodate every company that you're installing?
Yeah. Well, fortunately in these times, it's a bit of an obvious joke, but the robots do come pre-vaccinated. So they are fairly resilient to the virus. But yeah, what we've seen is, usually people are evaluating the robots in terms of the throughput of the systems or, just the direct savings on labor and things like that. But now there's this additional facet, which is that, the robots really don't mind what they're sorting. And so you can kind of deploy them in whatever the most unpleasant spots are, or you can put them in spots where people are the most crowded, things like that. And so that flexibility it gives a MRF to maintain its operations is now, I think, an equally large part of the puzzle. Also, what people are seeing is that when you have these bigger macro trends, the robots are also a source of consistency. So, of course, during COVID, you have sorters who don't want to put their hands through the material because they're afraid it might be infected. But before that, you had very low rates of unemployment, right? And so sorters are really hard to get a hold of. And so these are sort of bigger things going on that a MRF usually has control over. And so we're seeing that there's kind of this connection. Robots create resiliency in the MRF. You can kind of weather these storms and Joe's facility at RDS is a great example of this, where, the variation in sorting capacity and sorters that he had available and who are willing to do the job was really kind of a minor issue for him because he was fairly well staffed up on the robots. I've heard of all sorts of interesting things MRFs have tried to do to create this sort of separation. I've heard about shower curtains being placed between sorters and things like that, just to try to enforce distancing.
Oh, sure.
And it's not easy. A lot of these MRFs really weren't designed with this kind of use case in mind.
Right. It will be interesting to see where it goes. And do you think the pandemic has accelerated the adoption of technology?
I think so. That's at least our experience. What we've seen is, of course, people are concerned about their budgets and how things are going to how this is all going to play out, how long it's going to last, and things like that. But what we've seen is a lot of our potential customers in our pipeline, they've been looking at larger orders, or they're kind of diving in a little bit in a bit bigger of a way than they were beforehand. So now it's like, hey, you know what? There really is urgency here.
Right.
And, maybe I was going to dip my toe in the water with kind of one robot in this far off location to MRF. Now it's like, oh, okay, like I really wanted, of course, paper prices are changing quickly, but I wanted to be able to take advantage of this huge swing on paper. And so I want to keep my paper line staffed. And so now they're talking about the robots there, and it's all kind of feeding together. But yeah, I think all the issues MRFs were fighting with, whether it was turnover, quality, and things like that, COVID has only made those issues, even more front of mind, and which only, I think, sort of highlights the benefit of technology, including robots.
Absolutely. And I know we will get Joe on here to talk more about his personal experience with AMP. But in the meantime, what do you think COVID might mean for the future of recycling?
I think, well, what excites me is actually some broader trends, which I don't know how MRFs see this, but as I see it, there's, I think, a bit of a public acknowledgement that the recycling industry is providing this key resource. So in this case, it's paper that the country needs. And so there's this kind of connection between strategic access to resources. So, toilet paper doesn't seem like a strategic resource for the country until the country doesn't have it. And right. It's a very strategic resource. But people are saying the recycling industry produces all is a huge source of domestic supply of materials. And it's not just about saving the planet and doing the right thing and all of this. And I think that has important policy implications over the long term. And then I think, people now have a little bit more of this mentality of, hey, I have a MRF and it's going to run for 20 years. Over the course of 20 years, it's likely that something like this happens. And so having the MRF set up and having the equipment to be able to weather different storms with, basically the labor supply, that being top of mind for facilities, I think isn't going to go away. So, for AMP as a company, and I think for the industry as a whole, I think it's good. The industry has to keep planning for the long term. It starts to sort of understand what the effects of these different shocks are and can plan for them.
Absolutely. And anything else in your crystal ball that you want to share before we let you go?
I would just share that we have to basically to kind of meet the issues that are happening right now. We are introducing a leasing program so that recycling facilities can, it's a crazy time. People are unsure about their cash flows, and there's sort of a need to respond quickly. We've tried to position the robots as a tool for MRFs, and so we've done that in two ways. One is significantly reducing our lead time. So for kind of one of our more standard robots, we can be quite quick, sometimes as quick as 4 to 6 weeks, and we're trying to get it even faster than that. And then with this lease program, we can install these robots with no money down, and so they don't have to worry about cash flow. They only start paying when the robot is offsetting their costs, and we think that is very well suited for the moment we have right now. Occasionally you read about MRFs that are struggling and not accepting certain materials, or even some that were shutting down at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's such a shame, especially when material prices go up. And so we just want to be able to play a role in keeping the industry healthy and sorting all this stuff.
Absolutely. And you're taking the hurdles away, which is super helpful and what everyone needs right now. That's fantastic.
We try every day. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. I'm going to give you a little cyber cheers. It's not necessarily.
Oh, yes.
A little bit of water. Wait, yeah. How do I do it? There we go. Well, thank you for doing this. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Matanya. And thanks for all the work you're doing. And we look forward to chatting with you soon.
Likewise, Liz. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Talk soon. Bye.
Take care.
Today, I'm lucky enough to have Joe Benedetto, president of RDS of Virginia. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So, COVID, as you know, is on everyone's mind. Can you tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has affected RDS and your business?
Yes, and I know you're specifically referring to our recycling program, our municipal recycling program, the one that we operate in Roanoke, Virginia, we've seen a lot of, I just used the term crazy because it's very hard to imagine any of this ever would have happened even a year ago. But with the pandemic and the shutdown, we did see a lot of changes to recycling. One of the most notable ones was the fact that we saw an increase in volume coming through our municipal recycling program because everybody all of a sudden was locked into their homes. And so there was a push to recycle more. Those recycle bins became very full of not only recyclable products, but also of items that are not always recyclable. So some of that contamination, we did see an increase in that also. So just some of the newer recyclers, I think, wanting to recycle and just not 100% sure what to recycle, so they went ahead and put it into the program.
Sure. And did you see any changes, Joe, commercial versus residential volumes?
Yes, of course, with all the office and industrial and commercial facilities being closed due to the coronavirus, we saw a significant drop off in the commercial volume, whereas the residential volume actually picked up. So it was kind of a change, not something I would have initially expected, but it was a change in the recycling commitment, the recycling volumes that we saw.
I bet. I think a lot of people have seen that. And then how have you handled workplace safety during this time?
So we've done a lot of things, of course, following some of the initial recommendations. We did encourage employees to go ahead if they were not feeling well to stay at home. We actually changed our sick and vacation policy and we made it an all-inclusive paid time off policy. So we kind of altered that program to give our employees more flexibility to take time off if they needed it because they were not feeling well. And then within the plant, we established a few different processes to keep our employees safe. Processes such as making sure we're wiping down and we're cleaning each day. A lot of the office items that people touch, going even as far as to wipe down doorknobs and such. One of the other big things that we did was we initiated contact with non-RDS employees. For example, the drivers that used to bring us material as they crossed the scale, they used to come to the office and they would get a scale ticket. We went completely electronic with those scale tickets, so now it's emailed directly to the company that is bringing us the product. So we've made a number of different changes like that. We are fortunate in our facility that we're in a larger facility, and with the number of employees we have, it's been very easy to social distance and keep our employees further apart throughout their workday. The robots, and I'm sure this is part of your question too, but the robots that we had installed a number of months prior to the pandemic. And we had done that in an effort to not only improve our quality during a period of time when our consumers were demanding a higher and better quality product, but we also did that because we were having challenges finding capable employees to come into our facility and sort through the recyclable products and remove contamination. So those robots were installed prior to the pandemic. They helped us improve our quality. They helped us meet the labor needs that we had that we were unable to fulfill. And then during the pandemic, with the increase in volume, the robots were there working full-time every day. We did not have any worry about any type of coronavirus with the robots. That's a pretty obvious statement. But the robots, really have outperformed, and we've been able to program them to address some of the additional contamination that we were seeing come in due to the increased volume that we saw as a result of the single stream increase in volume.
Great. And Matanya from AMP always says they come pre-vaccinated, so that's one of the pluses in this wild time, right?
They really do. Pre-vaccinated, they show up every day and they work as hard from the moment we start the machine to the end of our day. So we're are actually very pleased that we were able to get those in place. Once again, prior to the pandemic, I'm not sure how we would have met our challenges if it weren't for the robots that we have.
Wow, that's amazing. And were they able to help you pivot with the additional OCC demand and other materials?
Yes, yes. So again, the robots do help us with our quality control, and they
Okay.
have really made a big difference in improving our quality. And part of our quality not only is removing contaminated items that are not supposed to be in the product, but it's also sorting the product up to the highest value. So we do try to remove the OCC from the other news mixed papers that we make. And once again, the robots are there and have performed wonderful.
Oh, that's great. And the timing was great for you that you had done this prior to COVID, so you were ready to go.
We're very lucky, yes, very lucky, not ever anticipating what happened in the future, but meeting that current demand for additional labor and higher quality material was the decision maker to put the robots in. Having them in place prior to the pandemic was just a bonus.
Good for you. That's fantastic. And in terms of efficiency, Joe, how do these robots compare to a person doing the same job? Obviously, more than just the pre-vaccination that we talked about, but and how will they help in the long run, you think?
Sure. So the robots very easily outperform a single individual. I've heard that they can actually take the place of two people, and I'm sure that's probably not off base. But the robots, as I shared with you, they do show up every day. They're there every day. We turn a switch and they come on and they start to operate, and then they operate throughout the day. You know, our prior experience with some of the people we had in positions was that in the morning they come in and they're fresh and they've had coffee and they're ready to work. But after an hour or two of sorting, they're ready and we take a break. And then when they come back from that break, they're not quite as fresh. And so we get into lunchtime, and come mid-afternoon, they've been sorting for 4 hours, 5 hours, and they're just not sorting at the same effective level that they did when they first came in the morning. So our missed product would increase as the day went by, and our productivity actually went down again as the day went by. Whereas with the robots, it's a consistently high level of production throughout the entire day, and that's been a big benefit. We have seen an increase in the product that we recover as a result of the robots picking effectively throughout the entire day and just not in the mornings.
Wow, that's great. So what lies ahead for you post-pandemic in your business?
Well, we continue to invest in our facility. We believe we need to stay up with technology. That was another decision maker in regards to the robots. We are learning about the robots just as AMP is continuing to develop and improve the efficiency of the robots. And we're actually finding other areas where we think we could utilize robots to more effectively reduce our contamination and improve our product. So we're continuing to study that. We're also looking at our other facility. We have a second facility where we could potentially utilize robots. And we're in the process, once again, of doing a study there to see if they would be effective. Long term, I would share with you, I'm a firm believer that the robots have gone ahead and improved our quality and increased the volume of material that we can remove from the recycle stream that we have coming into the facility. And that is our ultimate goal. It's to reduce the residue and recycle everything we can for our member communities. But I also am a believer that the robots have helped us stabilize our cost structure and will allow us to better get a handle on our productivity, make that more consistent as we move forward. So, the other nice thing, and Matanya didn't say it, but I will, when those robots are working and we need them to come in on a Saturday or we need them to work overtime, they're there and there's no extra cost for that.
Right.
So the elimination of things like the PPP, because the robots are pre-vaccinated, has been beneficial. We have some cost reductions. Obviously, with a few less employees, the robots are not going to get injured, so we don't have to worry about some of the safety issues. And for those robots, the elimination of overtime that we would have had working with temp labor, we do pre-employment physical, pre-employment drug testing, and all. There's a lot of small, little, and tangible benefits that we are recognizing now that most of the time you don't even think about. The hidden cost of having an employee, I would say. Oh, and I guess I should mention the robots don't take vacation.
Productivity never ends with the robots.
It does not. No, it does not. So,
Great.
they've been, I would tell you, they've been a great investment. I'm very excited about the technology being here to help us. Again, this started off as a need to use additional labor, but it was labor we could not find because the economy was so strong. We could not find people. We could not get people to come in and work in the facility. It's a very challenging position, and it's a very challenging position to fill with reliable people who want to work the full day. So that was the ultimate driver, but there have been so many other benefits. I think robots are here to stay.
I think you're right. And it's so great that you shared your story. And as you collect more data, we'd love to hear more. So thank you, Joe.
Well, thank you very much.
And stay well.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, we'll check in with you soon. Bye, Joe. Thanks for joining Coffee Talk.
Bye-bye.
Cheers with my non-coffee.
Good.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.